Welcome to General Psychology 201. This is a video lesson for the evolutionary perspective of psychology. You can get a copy of this lesson just to the left of the link that you use to watch this video. So again, when you look at the perspectives of psychology, you want to start off slowly, and as you go along, add more information. So if you take the 8 perspectives of psychology and rearrange the first letters of the different perspectives of psychology, you get 2 B's, 2 C's, 2 P's, an H, and an E. If you can start off slowly with those letters and then add the name of the perspectives, biological, behavioral, cognitive, cultural, psychodynamic, positive psychology, humanist, and evolutionary, it makes learning the information a little bit easier. Once you have the name, add a description of the different perspectives of psychology, give some examples of those different perspectives and what it helps explain. So again, like the last two, here is a brief description of the different perspectives of psychology. The evolutionary perspective helps explain behavior in terms of natural selection. Traits that facilitate survival are much more likely to allow that person or group of people to survive, live longer, reproduce, grow in numbers. Traits that don't facilitate survival are less likely to allow people or a group to survive. They're more likely to live shorter lives, they'll have fewer children, and in the long run, they're going to have smaller families, and whatever that trait is that's not useful for survival is going to be less predominant within that species. Now in this example, I'm exaggerating the process for the purpose of illustration. Let's say that there's some people who are afraid of snakes, and there's some people who are not afraid of snakes. So those who are afraid of snakes are on the left, those who are not afraid of snakes are on the right. And those that are afraid of snakes, it's argued that that is adaptive because you're much more likely to avoid dangerous snakes. If you avoid dangerous snakes, you're much more likely to live longer, you're much more likely to have large families, and over multiple generations, that trait of avoiding snakes tends to be much greater in the population. Not being afraid of snakes, liking them, and wanting to have them as a cute pet, kind of like a puppy or a kitten, is probably not very successful for that group of individuals. They're less likely to avoid snakes. They are more likely to live shorter lives, and they're more likely to have smaller families. So on the right-hand picture, I have some of these families in a washed out kind of image, indicating that these are families that haven't occurred because they live shorter lives and have smaller families because they've gotten bitten by poisonous snakes. So their families are going to be much smaller, and in the long run, that trait is going to be smaller within the population. And we do find that things that have killed humans in the past, we are much more likely to develop phobias and fears of them. We're much more likely to develop phobias of snakes, spiders, cats, dogs, heights, lightning, and it's very difficult to make people afraid of curtains, wooden blocks, and rubber ducks. Because curtains, wooden blocks, and rubber ducks have not killed large amounts of humans, whereas dogs, cats, spiders, snakes, sharks, things like that have killed people and have scared people. One characteristic that seems to have an evolutionary advantage is the ability to perceive faces. And we do have this tendency to perceive faces even when there aren't any faces. It's argued that it's adaptive to be able to spot other allies or spot other enemies. And avoiding enemies and moving towards allies tend to have an evolutionary advantage that allows that group of people to survive a little bit better. So in this picture, we are much more likely to perceive an angry bunny face in this upside down cat when there really isn't an angry bunny face. But we seem to be predisposed to be perceiving faces when they don't really exist. And if we take a look at the cat right side up, angry bunny face doesn't seem to be much, doesn't seem to be there. But again, the point of this is that we have this predisposition to see faces that don't really exist, and it had an evolutionary advantage. Some other examples, on the left is a low resolution picture of some terrain on Mars. People were very likely to see a face there. When we got a higher resolution of that same terrain on Mars, it's a little bit more difficult to see a face on Mars. We're much more likely to see faces when they aren't there in a grilled cheese sandwich, coffee, sunset, a dryer, a mop, some snow on a tree, clouds, and we're much more likely to see faces when they probably really aren't there. So as a humorous sort of image, this is one where reincarnation has gone horribly wrong, where somehow some animal got reincarnated into a tree, and we see parts of its face in the wood. Again, the point of this is that we have this biological evolutionary tendency to see faces in things when they probably aren't there, and we have this bias to see faces. So again, evolutionary perspective says that there are these traits, these tendencies, whether it's thinking processes or behaviors that have an evolutionary advantage that help people survive or reproduce. Thank you.